Welcome to the Norris Group Real Estate Podcast, a show committed to bringing you insights from thought leaders shaping the real estate industry. In each episode, we'll dive into conversations with industry experts and local insiders, all aimed at helping you thrive in an ever-changing real estate market, continuing the legacy that Bruce Norris created, sharing valuable knowledge, and empowering you on your real estate journey. Whether you're a seasoned pro or a newcomer, this is your go-to source for insider tips, market trends, and success strategies. Here's your host, Craig Evans.
Thanks for joining us again for part 2 of our Investor Club Roundup with our special guests, Kaaren Hall from OCREIA and Derek Harms, president of NSDREI. Hope you enjoy. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. How different, and I'll let whoever wants to answer this first, how different are the questions that people ask to the whole crowd than the ones that they say, hey, Derek, can I ask you a question? Hey, Kaaren, can I ask you a question before they go home? How different are those questions? Because I'm thinking about when I'm trying to pull Bruce out of the meeting and everybody's like, just one sec. Can I just ask you one sec? So how different are those questions where like, hey, you know, I'm asking a question in the crowd, or like, hey, Derek, you know, can I ask you something?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that when guys like Bruce or similar speakers are at the club, at least the way I tend to MC the meeting is to try to answer as many of the larger questions that most of the people in the audience are going to have and want to leave the night knowing. Whereas usually afterwards, we'll get a lot more of the specific scenarios to this person's specific deal or situation or event or scenario in their life, that type of a thing. And then maybe you can sidebar a little bit, but it's not efficient to get into the weeds like that with individual scenarios, unless that it is something that we feel would represent the greater good. So that's usually what I see is like a kind of like a high level down to granular thing.
Is that the same for you, Kaaren?
I mean, we're on Zoom, so people aren't like a lot of times coming up and asking me questions, but like where Derek is a real estate investor full time, I mean, it makes more sense to ask Derek about the market. And then we have time for the speakers after. We just let people get in touch with them and ask them directly. And then, of course, my specialty is self-directed IRA. So it's like, how can I break this up and get this into a self-directed IRA? You know, how can I get a piece of this deal? That kind of thing.
So what's the biggest concern right now? Is if we went to your meeting, what would be the biggest concern that investors have right now?
Interest rates, I would say. I think, obviously, this is not news to either one of you, but of course, how many people are sitting on 2.75% mortgages with a ton of equity, and they don't want to sell their house. They don't want to let go of that inventory. So a lot of inventory is frozen because really, who would walk away from that? You turn it into a rental, and you don't walk away from something like that. And so, and then when you want to buy, like there's a house I wanted to buy, and I ended up not pulling the trigger on it. And then rates went up. And so the house went up in price, and then the rates made the payment double. So where I would have been walking into, like this one payment, the other payment was double and really more than I wanted to spend. So what happened between 2022 and 2024, 25 now is rates have made things less affordable, and housing prices. Like Derek, you say, I mean, Southern Cal, I mean, OC isn't San Diego, but it's still a wonderful place and beautiful place to live. People really want to be here. So prices go up. So it becomes more and more out of reach.
So Derek, what's the biggest concern down there? Is it affordability, barrier entry? What is it?
So I'm glad you said barrier to entry. We do get a lot of those concerns from folks. Is barrier to entry is difficult, right? The price points are high. And so that means what? You have to either be independently wealthy and have a stack of cash that you can put into some of these deals, or on the contrary, and what I do and what most people do is they borrow money. So the borrowing money aspect is very important to San Diego investors, because it's so critical and necessary, essentially, if you want to do any sort of volume. And I would also say ADUs are a big thing in San Diego right now. City of San Diego specifically has some of the most lenient ADU laws in the country, and it's actually made news stories lately. City Council has been getting into it a little bit with potentially pulling back on some of the loopholes. And knock on wood, I was able to take advantage of a couple of those. But we have bonus densities, which allow you to build super dense in neighborhoods that weren't originally designed for it. So understandably so, neighbors are getting pissed off. And so, but if you pull a permit, yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah. So that's been a big thing. We see a lot of concern about pricing in terms of like contractors and underwriting, how to make deals work, concern about the actual median price and where is this going in relation to interest rates, and are they related? Because as Bruce will explain to everyone, and as he does so eloquently every year, rates and pricing aren't always necessarily correlated, right? They are often, but sometimes they're not. So I would say that, and of course the inventory, right? San Diego still has historically low inventory, and it's been a tough kind of pockety real estate market. If I can just sum up the San Diego County market, is that it's very pockety, and some areas are moving really well, some are not. Some asset types are moving better than others, and so you really, really have to know what you're doing right now if you want to make consistent profits.
I'll stay with you, Derek. Who has been the most dynamic speaker that you've had in the last 12 months? And I'll take it away from you guys, notwithstanding Bruce. Other than Bruce,
what?
The most dynamic speaker. Let me think about that one for a second. Kaaren, you want to take this one, and then I'll give me a minute to think about it. We had some really good ones.
Yeah, we have some really good ones. One of my favorites is a guy named Hans Box, and he's out of Texas. And the reason I really liked his appearance at OCREIA is because he's super analytical, and he was talking about vetting deals, vetting real estate syndications, and breaking it down into the numbers. Because what I see in the self-directed IRA space is people investing in syndications and not knowing how to vet a deal, not knowing how to vet a syndication deal. So that, people came away from that with some real solid knowledge about, how to vet a syndication deal effectively. Now you vet it on the outs, at the beginning, and it doesn't really impact what's happening during the syndication. You've got to go back in and make sure that you've got the right to look at the financials and so forth. But I really love the way Hans broke it down and made it just so straightforward for everyone.
Nice.
So after thinking about it now, so we've had a lot of really awesome speakers in the last 12 months. Of course, we had Bruce. We've had some of the legends, right? Pete Fortunato and Bill Cook and Aaron Mazzarillo, which was really good. He spoke at our holiday party, and he brought his two partners, and they got into novations.
How candid was he?
Oh, very much so. Aaron, he's wonderful stage presence, that's for sure. I would say though, I really enjoyed speaking with the previous chief economist of Fannie Mae, Doug Duncan, who I know the Norris group knows really well. I prepared for that interview for at least a month before that, and I really enjoyed that process because I was able to learn and understand a lot more about economics than I ever thought I could have by preparing for that interview. And speaking with him was really interesting. And one thing that really resonates with me was I asked him, will we ever see interest rates like we did in this previous low interest rate environment in your lifetime, Doug? And he said no. So I thought that was an interesting takeaway. And I do want to give we had so many good speakers, but Chi Win also did a really good one on note investing. And what I loved about it was so granular and in the weeds and like bare knuckles to where you could go and take what she talked about into the marketplace and go invest in notes like the next day. If you wanted to, you would obviously need to do some more diligence, but it was that packed with information. Jan Leisure, who spoke at Gary Johnson's event the Masters of Real Estate. She was really a blessing to talk to. Just such a bright light and bubbly and smart and generous with her time and willing to talk to people afterwards, and just really cool. And I'm kind of rambling here, but I really do appreciate all of our speakers. Dean Rogers was here in March, and I don't know if you know Dean, but he is just a animal when it comes to his business model, and really was able to help provide some nuggets to people. But as you can tell,
the common thread here is that these are all people who, could have just made their money, keep making their money, but they're out there, coming to your guys' clubs and just sharing everything that they know, and just, helping just countless investors, because you never know what connection you're going to make, where it's going to take your career. I want to ask a sort of a follow-up question and it's kind of a fun question. I asked this to the guys last month. All right, so if you could have anybody throughout history come and speak at your club one time, who would that be?
Ooh,
I'd like to bring Mike Cantu back.
That's a good one.
When I very first got into the space here in Southern California, I went to NSDREI and I heard Mike Cantu speak. It was a very long time ago. And I'll never forget, buy 4, sell 3, keep 1 for me, But he hasn't spoken in a long time, and he's a great speaker. I would bring Mike back.
Yeah, he's interesting. He's still, we interviewed him, a couple of years ago. He still reads an hour every day, and he still prints out every email.
He does not.
Yes, he does. He still prints out every email, and he doesn't do it. He's got an assistant that does it. So he's when I try to get him on Zoom, I have to get on the phone and walk him through it. He's like, "Oh, sorry, my assistant's not here. She's on vacation, and I got to walk him through that." So, Derek, who would you bring back? Who would dead or alive? Throughout history, doesn't have to be real estate. Who would you bring?
I have an answer to that. I do want to second what Kaaren said. It'd be really good to have Mike back. He spoke at our club on Zoom in April of 2021, and we compressed 40 years of experience into 2 hours, and it was just such a fun interview, and he helped so many people just in that Zoom call, and I'm grateful to have lunch with Mike usually every quarter, and he continues to be a huge presence in my life and in my financial world, and it's really he's really just one of the legends, the icons, and just like the overall good people that we love in this industry. I think if I could bring anyone to the club, I would try to get Warren Buffett. I think I would try to get the most successful investor of all time to our investor club and see if we can pull a few gold nuggets out of him.
I think I talked about this last time, but everybody talks about Warren and Charlie, right? Warren, Charlie. Does everybody know that there was a third partner?
Who's that?
I forget his name. I think it was Roger. What's that?
Bruce Norris.
No, it wasn't Bruce Norris. No, but he kind of fizzled out, and he was successful, but not to the levels of Charlie and Warren. And one of the things that I love about when they asked him, like, why do you think he wasn't as successful as you guys? And his answer was he didn't understand the concept of enough. And it just kind of blew my mind. Like, at some point, you don't just chase the money. You have other aspects. You want to give philanthropically. You have your family. You want to give back to the community that brought you up, which kind of leads me to another question: is who did you connect with at your clubs, or who has been probably the biggest influence in your career that you met at a club?
I'll start with that. I met one of my best friends now, and a really successful real estate investor in his own right here in San Diego County. His name is Nick Davison. He's spoken at our club on a panel since then, and he's just a really, really good dude. And I met him at a club, and without getting too into it, but we met at a financial it was like an apartment building mastermind lunch, and we met there. And then there was a real estate guys syndication event like a few weeks later in Phoenix, and we're like, hey, are you going to that? Yeah. Am I going to that? Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's go. And we ended up sharing a hotel room, and we get there, and I booked the room in advance, and we get there like, oh, sorry, your room isn't available, the one that we booked for you, but we have this room over here that has one bed. Are you guys okay with that? And we just like looked at each other. We're like, are we okay with this? Like, are you sure? And we're like, whatever, let's do it. And so we ended up sharing a bed in Phoenix for a syndication event. And we were just become super, super good buddies ever since then. He was at my wedding. And, but again, it all started there.
Who's the better fisherman?
Yeah, oh man, well, that goes without saying, certainly me. But I got to give him some credit. He's been a trooper and has gone with me on a lot of trips, Alaska, Montana, all around the U.S. actually fly fishing. So cheers to you, Nick.
Kaaren, who's been the biggest influence on you?
Yeah, a couple of people. One is Amanda Hahn. We met at a real estate investment meeting even before I opened Udirect, and kind of built our companies together. Obviously, Amanda's and Matt are their CPAs, and just our careers have grown together. And Amanda's just taken off like a rocket ship, with bigger pockets, and she's just such a natural. And it's just great to see her, growing in the ways that she is and influencing people in such a positive way. She's also been my CPA for 18 years. So thank God for her, And also Kathy Fetke, she's somebody I met at the clubs, and we got to be good friends. And look at somebody who is, she and her husband, Rich, look what they've done for investors, Real Wealth Network, right? And just taking it from grassroots, buying a house in Dallas, to creating so many opportunities for the entry-level investor. I mean, obviously big investors too, but also for the entry-level investor to get in and to make sense of it, to understand things, soup to nuts, how do you do this, and to be really heavy in education. And so those two women have been huge leaders and dear, dear friends.
Kaaren, so I think if I don't mind, Joey, I'd like to
go for it.
I really appreciate what you said there, because at the end of the day, what are you doing when you go to an organization like Kaaren's or the NSDREI? You're going there to surround yourself with other like-minded individuals who have taken the effort to drive to the club or log into Zoom, whatever. It all takes effort. You're taking the effort to be part of this, taking an effort to shake someone's hand or reach out to them on a phone call or email later. And every one of us that attends is putting yourself in that ecosystem. And if you put yourself in situations like that, in that type of environment enough, things start to happen. And they don't happen overnight. Sometimes they do, but it takes a little while most of the time. But when you're around those types of folks regularly, you start to assimilate, you start to siphon off some of their experience and knowledge and apply it to your own business model. And you start to become friends with these people. And then next thing you know, you're on a group text with 10 top developers in your town, and you're getting connections that way and insight and things you never would have known. And it all starts by putting yourself in that position. So I encourage anyone listening to this tonight, or wherever you're at on your drive or at the gym or whatever. And if you haven't yet stepped into the doors of OCREIA, I would highly recommend you do it. And if you're in North San Diego or Norris County, definitely check out Kaaren or the NSDREI, the OCREIA. But it really is an environment that nurtures your financial growth.
So I want to touch a little bit on what's going on right now. So it's been a rough couple of weeks for the stock market. And honestly, year to date, it's down, almost 6,000 points year to date now. But, a lot of people, they don't, like Bruce doesn't pay attention to the stock market, as far as stocks, because he doesn't own any. It's all real estate. So how do you guys view what's going on right now in the stock market? And do you believe it's going to affect the real estate market in general, or will it really affect, like, I'll start with you, Kaaren. Like, what do you think about what's going on right now?
What do I think? I mean, I think that we've got a sick patient and it needs to go to the hospital, needs some medicine. I see what's happening as a correction. I don't see this as a Armageddon. I see that, Trump and his advisors, in my opinion, are very intelligent. And what they're doing is doing, what it takes to do. I think that by causing the market to do what it's doing now, what they're doing effectively is bringing rates down. And if rates are lower, then they'll be able to readjust and recast loans at a lower rate. And it's going to help a lot of people in that situation with lower rates. So I don't know if we're going to see 2.75 again, like what he said, never, you said. But I think, bringing down rates is one thing. But I mean, this isn't something he's just doing on the fly. This is something that's had a lot of serious consideration. So, the patient has to take some medicine and it hurts. But didn't we have this exact same thing during COVID? Didn't the market go down then? Doesn't it go down, on a regular basis? And I think it's a cycle. It's got a pattern. You can measure that. I'm sure it's pretty measurable and consistent that it's going to go up and down. So it's down now. But when I was in Seattle at an event, multifamily event in September, there's a guy, I wish I could remember his name, he was speaking, and he talks about how basically the stock market has been a hockey stick, and nothing is ever flat, but the stock market is going to continue to go up. So we're having a correction now. I'm not worried. And it's another reason why people like alternative assets too, is because anybody who's got a house or got renters, they don't care what the stock market's doing. They collected their rent on the first, right? And it didn't really impact them unless those people lost their jobs. And if that's the case, then real estate investors are buying more houses. Am I right?
Derek, what's your take?
Honestly, I'm not qualified to answer any question about the stock market. I only have a handful of stocks. I don't day trade. I follow the news headlines, and that's really all I know about the under the hood of the stock market. But what I will say is that I think that overall it's going to be an interesting balance, right? When stocks usually go down, and this may not be true always, but at least the way I understand it, if money's flowing out of stocks, then oftentimes will flow into bonds. Money flows into bonds. That's going to drive interest rates lower. And then it becomes what comes first, right? Are people freaked out about a recession and their stock portfolio and retirement accounts looking a little lower? But on the flip side, if there's been buyer on the sideline and interest rates are significantly lower, are they now going to pull the trigger where they once wouldn't have because rates were a little higher and it didn't make sense for them affordability wise? So I think it'll be this interesting balance. I think the equalizer, at least in the San Diego market that I know and work in, is going to be inventory. And as long as inventory stays so low and we have these swings in the stock market, bonds and interest rates, it doesn't seem like anything is going to go crazy one direction. At least that's the way I see it. So I'm not looking at this like, oh, everyone run for the hills who's buying homes in San Diego County. I think that it's like Kaaren said, it's a correction. And it'll be interesting to watch though, like how the buyer sentiment reacts in terms of, are we going into a recession or are interest rates lower? And am I comfortable buying now? But what I will say is that, kind of a hot take, I think this was Trump's plan all the whole time. And I think that he's been very vocal about wanting Jerome Powell to lower federal funds rate. And I think this may be one way for him to get it done, right? You create a somewhat of a recession and the Fed may need to pivot in order to help out. So I don't know. We'll see if that comes to fruition or not, but definitely first 4 months of this presidency has definitely kept the popcorn on the table.
So we're getting close to an hour. So I want to ask just two more questions of each. So the one question I want to ask is, let's say I'm a brand new investor, first time at your club. What would your advice to me be?
Wow. Take notes and meet other people, network, and get to know the people, because just like Derek was saying, it's the people you know. And I mean, of course, I'll say it, your network is your net worth. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I would say something very similar is get to know everyone in the room, right? Everyone here is like-minded. It's extremely important. I usually tell newer folks to the industry, I usually tell them a couple things. I say, look, you're in San Diego, you want to do this, you're going to have to borrow money. Go learn the borrowing money language. Go to lunch with a couple hard money lenders. Learn what a promissory note is. Learn what a deed of trust is. Learn what people are paying for this kind of financing. Go and talk to someone who's maybe invested in second position with private money. What are they doing? Talk to Kaaren. How are self-directed IRAs able to help you buy your assets? Now, I always tell people, like, you have to learn that component. And if you really want to buy homes here in San Diego County, then of course, similar networking, go find one or two people that you think are operating in a similar space that you could see yourself doing. Take that person out to lunch, right? Offer some free work for them. Go find a deal for them and then partner with them on them, and don't make a penny, but have them show you how they did it. So that I've done that for a couple folks, and I like that advice. And I think that those two things could be really helpful for somebody new.
All right, Kaaren, tell everybody once again how they can connect with OCREIA.
Yeah, we've got a website, OCREIA.com. So it's super easy to find us. And you can register for our next meeting right online, right there. That's free. So there you go. And we have, always just some really amazing speakers. Like I mentioned, this month, it's Vinny Chopra. He's going to be talking about residential assisted living. And then we always have somebody new. So again, OCREIA.com.
Derek.
Our website is NSDREI.org, and you can find us on Instagram and Facebook as well. And we meet the third Tuesday of every month at the Shadow Ridge Country Club in Vista, and we really look forward to meeting the new faces and hopefully turning the light bulb on so where you can start to become that financial hero for your family through real estate investing, because we see it happen.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for being on our sort of our spinoff show. I'd like to continue doing this, and maybe have you guys do it once or twice a year, with different folks and different questions. I think it'd be good for people to get to know you guys like we know you guys. So thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time.
For more information on hard money loans, trust deed investing, and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For more information on passive investing through the DBL Capital Real Estate Investment Fund, please visit dblcapital.com.
The Norris Group originates and services loans in California and Florida under the California DRE license 01219911, Florida Mortgage Lender license 1577, and NMLS license 1623669. For more information on hard money lending, go to thenorrisgroup.com and click the hard money tab.